Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to Beyond 280. This is the show where we go beyond the 280 characters that Twitter limits us to and get to know the trends, the people, get behind the facts and the what's not fact and all that fun stuff. And I tend to throw my opinion in with it as well. Just what I do. So my name is Scott Allison, and again, you are here and you are Beyond 280. While you're here, if you would just take a minute, hit subscribe, and hit that bell. And the reason why I say hit that bell is so that you can be reminded of when I go live, kind of out of band. So I normally go live on Mondays and Wednesdays at this time at 5 p.m. Central. But as schedules warrant, as I bring on interviews, it's probably gonna, I'm probably gonna have the occasional Thursday stream or Sunday stream or whatever. So, because I will be bringing in people to interview them because I want to get to know the people behind the avatar so that we can maybe encourage a culture of empathy instead of all this division that we see, especially in social media today. So wanted to get right in this. This is a weighty subject that I'm going to talk about today, and I think therefore I am. I think it's probably going to rankle a few feathers. I really do. If you got anything to add to the conversation, please go ahead and put them in the comments. If you have any questions for me specifically, or if you want to debate me on something, feel free to put those in the comments, and I will definitely address them at some point during this stream. So you've probably seen it all over the news. You can't escape it. It's everywhere. And there's a reason why it's everywhere, but I'm not going to go into that right now. But there's this thing called critical race theory. Now, there's a lot of misinformation out there as to what critical race theory is, and it kind of surprises me actually that Twitter even allows for this type of misinformation to go out there about something so important. I mean, they jump all over you if you say just something slightly wrong about the Voldemort virus, that which cannot be named, or if you have an opinion on voting. Right. If you have an opinion on voting, well, you're not allowed to say that's misinformation. So you got to be really, really careful around Twitter. Well, that's only for some things, of course, right? So with critical race theory, you can say whatever you want. You can throw out all sorts of information out there, and nobody seems to care, right? Because it's for the greater good, I guess. I'm not sure. So give me 1 second here. I've got a house cleaning thing I need to do real quick. Need to verify something here. Okay, it's verified. Sorry about that. So what is critical race theory? Well, if you hear other pundits and you hear legislators, and especially on the right, it's this awful thing. It's this terrible, terrible, awful, just bloodbath of a thing. And nobody really can explain it. Right? At least not in a few sentences. And so as a result of, all this misinformation, we're all just kind of going, critical race theory means that, it's a good thing that, that there's, well, it basically means that America's racist. That's basically what it means. But let's go down and look at some articles about this. Specifically, we can go and take a quick look at Wikipedia. One of my favorite pages. I love Wikipedia. And the reason why I love it is because it's a good starting point. I don't ever use it exclusively to get my information, but I feel like it's a good starting point. Kind of gets you kind of the high-level bullet points that you need to really start digging into the actual issues. So Wikipedia defines critical race theory as this. It's an academic movement of civil rights scholars and activists in the United States who seek to critically examine the law as it intersects with issues of race and to challenge mainstream liberal approaches to racial justice. Now, let's make sure you understand that this is the academic version of liberal, not the political version of liberal. So this is not, it's not liberals. It's just the academic version of this word. Critical race theory examines social, cultural, and legal issues as they relate to race and racism. Sorry, I had to clear my throat. So that's it in a nutshell. And there's some detail here about who originated this. It's pretty much started in the 70s, but really came to kind of its own in the late 80s. A couple of the founders of this movement, Richard Delgado, Derek Bell, you'll see these names come up again and again. Kimberly Crenshaw, they come up a lot. And it basically emerged in the 80s as a reworking of critical legal studies with a focus on race. So both critical race theory and critical legal studies are rooted in critical theory. This is one thing I want everybody to really understand here. Critical theory argues that social problems are influenced and created more by societal structures and cultural assumptions than by individual and psychological factors. So keep that in mind, because that is a very, collectivist kind of sentiment, right? It's groupthink is really what that amounts to. So critical race theory is loosely defined by two common themes. First, that white supremacy with its societal or structural racism exists and maintains power through the law. Yeah, this is what it said. This is Wikipedia. And second, that transforming the relationship between law and racial power and also achieving racial emancipation and anti-subordination more broadly is possible. Okay, criticals of, and this is kind of interesting that they add some critical notes about the theory. Critics of critical race theory argue that it relies on social constructionism, elevates storytelling over evidence and reason, and rejects the concepts of truth and merit and opposes liberalism. So I can see both sides here. I can, especially when we talk about critical race theory being rooted in critical theory, which argues that social problems are influenced and created by more societal structures and cultural assumptions than by individual and psychological factors. That sentence makes sense to me. I know it's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to it here, and the reason why I do all this is because, or reason why I'm unpacking it this way is because I really want to show just how convoluted and paint into a corner type of issue this really is. It's not simple. Let's put it that way. It's not. At the end of the day, it is, but getting there with all the different layers and such is really not that simple. So what's with critical race theory? Why are we even talking about it? I mean, that's really what I'm talking about today. Why is it such a hot topic? And especially, why is it a hot topic on Twitter? Well, because everybody's talking about it. So there's legislation from different states that's trying to ban critical race theory from being taught in schools, and it's being framed as these legislation, all these different pieces of legislation as wanting to ban teaching the history of colored people or people of color, and that's really not what's going on here, because critical race theory it could care less about history. Just go look through the documentation and the writings done on it. It doesn't care about history. What it cares about is that racism is everywhere. It's everywhere. And it's the reason why there are problems for everyone. It's because of white supremacy. That's basically what it boils down to. So in their work, Critical Race Theory, an Introduction, which was published in 2001, so one of the founders, Richard Delgado, I mentioned his name before, and his partner there, Gene Stefanchik, can't pronounce it. They discussed several general propositions about CRT, about critical race theory. These are the tenets. And again, we're going to unpack this. So the first tenet is that race is socially constructed, not biologically natural. So yeah, sickle cell anemia is socially constructed, right? Yeah, skin color is socially constructed. Our DNA is socially constructed. So that's obviously just a wackadoodle statement. Number 2, racism in the United States is normal, not aberrational. In other words, it's just an accepted way of life. We're racist. It's a racist country, and it just is what it is. That's what this is saying here. It is the common, ordinary experience of most people of color. Okay. So number 3, the third tenet. Owing to what critical race theorists call interest convergence, legal advances for people of color tend to serve the interests of dominant white groups. So what that's basically saying is that white people cannot help people of color because they're only doing it for themselves. It's what it says. The fourth tenet. Members of minority groups periodically undergo differential racialization, or the attribution to them of varying sets of negative stereotypes depending on the needs or interests of whites. Okay. And then according to number 5, this is tenet number 5, and then again, this was published in 2001, and I'm just reading straight from it. According to the thesis of intersectionality or anti-essentialism, no individual can be adequately identified by membership in a single group. An African American person, for example, may also identify as a woman, a lesbian, a feminist, a Christian, and so on. I actually agree with that statement. You can call yourself whatever you want. You can call yourself a bisexual toaster. Who cares? Nobody cares. I don't care. Do you care? I don't care. Identify as whatever you want. And the sixth tenet, the voice of color thesis, holds that people of color are uniquely qualified to speak on behalf of other members of their group or groups regarding the forms and effects of racism. This consensus has led to the growth of the legal storytelling movement, which argues that self-expressed views of victims of racism and other forms of oppression provide essential insight into the nature of the legal system. So what that essentially means is that as part of all of this, that they weight individuals' stories of racism as broad. This story that I'm telling of my particular experience with racism is the general consensus of people of color. This is what's happening to everybody. So that's CRT, really, kind of in a nutshell, and it's packed tightly with all sorts of just division. It's packed with division. That's the best way I can put it. This is manifesting in all sorts of ways. I think the legislation is just one part of it. I think that like the 1619 Project, which on its face is ludicrous, simply because it's not dealing with anything in real factual anything. But besides that, it's actually starting to rear its head in even like places like the NFL. So the AP today released a story that the NFL pledges to halt race norming and review some black claims. So this is all stemming from the concussion issue with the NFL. So if you're not familiar with this, there's a disease that you get when you get multiple concussions. It's called CTE, and I can't remember the exact term, what that actually stands for, but it affects anybody who gets a concussion, or could potentially affect anybody who gets a concussion. Basically, a degenerative disease. So the NFL on Wednesday pledged to halt the use of race norming. And this is the AP's color. This isn't based on anything. This is what the AP says, which assumed black players started out with lower cognitive function. So there's nobody is saying this except the AP. In the $1 billion settlement of brain injury claims and review past scores for any potential race bias. The practice made it harder for black retirees to show a deficit and qualify for an award. So these standards were created in the 90s in hopes of offering more appropriate treatment. In other words, actually, let me go on to the section of the story that I found really, really interesting. The NFL noted that the norms were developed in medicine to stop bias in testing. Unintended consequences. That's what this is. This is all this is. So I can guarantee you, if you go back and you look at this particular practice, that there was some people that were complaining about there being bias in the way the medical treatment was being handled for patients. And so they developed this system, this method to address that. Well, the unintended consequence now is, well, you overshot, buddy. Now it looks like you're a bunch of racists, because now you're assuming that black people are more susceptible to X, Y, Z. So that makes you a racist. That's what this is not critical race theory, but it is a direct result of critical race theory. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the NFL completely botched this. I think they completely screwed up. They knew for a very, very long time that these concussions were causing just some serious brain issues. How could it not? I mean, that's just common sense, like smoking. Well, that's not going to damage anything inside me. Okay, whatever. Neither here nor there. They're being painted into a corner because CRT is a thing, because this idea that race is everything has pressured companies like the NFL into a bad spot. What are they going to do? They're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. So that's why I find this, all this stuff very disturbing, to say the least. It's extremely disturbing. So yeah, I think about that. I think about, the entire idea of this race norming and it originally being about the patient. Well, if anything, you should be addressing stuff like that when it comes to, like, say, affirmative action. Because affirmative action assumes that people of color are unable to achieve anything unless the government does something about it, or a law or a rule helps you out. So that's what affirmative action is. Now, the original intention of affirmative action was noble. It was during a period where racism was a serious issue, where black people were being segregated. They weren't getting the same treatment as white people, and so there were laws put forth that tried to address this. But like almost everything our government does, it overshot. And now affirmative action is detrimental to anybody who's not a person of color. Let's put it that way. Or it's even detrimental to Asians if you look at the Harvard case. Not going to go down that road tonight. So I'm saying all this, but again, my show is about Twitter, so we need to go and we need to look at some examples of this on the Twitter sphere and find out what are people really saying about it, and what does it all mean? So I shall go Check out the Twitters. So she's a thinker. Thing about it is, every name we've had from the N-word to African American was deemed appropriate and given to us by the government. Okay, so I'm going to pause right there for a second. I would like to see, first of all, let me switch. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Give me 1 second. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Okay. Okay, so she. Well, that's weird. I'm back to live mode. Okay, so she basically is saying that these words, African American and the N word, probably people of color even, was deemed appropriate and given to us by government. So I've been searching. I did some searching earlier on where this is documented. Where are the laws that said, okay, we shall forever call you African American, or we shall forever call you the N word? Where's that in our texts, our vast library of laws? You're not going to find it. That's why I need to switch to this, because I am talking a little to the right here. She goes on to say, a part of the black struggle is, so I think she meant a part, not a part. A part of the black struggle is self-determination. Another reason why we are pushing critical race theory to know who we were before slavery. So again, critical race theory doesn't care about history. Doesn't care about history. It only cares about racism. That's all it cares about. Doesn't care about history. Now it talks about slavery and the laws that were built, on the and the country that was built on the backs of slaves, sure. But it doesn't really care about anything beyond that. That's the beauty of CRT, is that it's so laser focused that if you deviate, it doesn't fit, and so it's ignored. But the statement that I'm really interested in here is a part of the black struggle itself, a part, not a part. She says a part, is self-determination. Well, that's interesting, because you already have the ability to self-determine. It's enshrined in our Constitution. It's absolutely enshrined in our Constitution. In fact, I'd wager to say that, Barack Obama, self-determined. Thomas Sowell, absolutely self-determined. You think David Stewart, who's, a multi-gazillionaire, think he's self-determined? Absolutely. What about George Washington Carver or Duke Ellington, LeBron James? These people all self-determined. That's what's great about this country. I mean, if you really want to talk about the ultimate self-determiner, because not only did this person self-determine, but they determined the fate of so many countless others. Harriet Tubman. You want to talk about self-determination? Holy crap. Harriet Tubman got my vote. And that's really the problem with these types of takes, is that they ignore the realities. The narrative of critical race theory requires that you ignore the realities, that you ignore the truths that are all around you. The truths, not the individual stories, but the truths that are all around you. The truth that, one of the richest women in America is a black woman. That we've had a black president, and we have a person of color who is the vice president, and is a woman, by the way. You want to talk intersectionality? There you go. It ignores all that, and it's supposed to ignore all that. In fact, to bring it up is racist. So I can guarantee you it's racist somehow. So the other tweet I wanted, well, it's actually a couple tweets, and these are kind of funny. So Kathy said that truth is a precursor to healing. Okay, that's a good start. America needs to confront its racist past and current present. Okay. So let's start off this way. Um, our country, the United States of America, is not without sin. Who here thinks that America has not had a spotty past or even a spotty present? Who can anybody please name for me a country that doesn't? I'd be very interested to find out what that country is, and I'm going to move there because it's so perfect. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So yes, America has a dark history. It also has a bright history. That's the human condition. That's just who we are. But to say that America needs to confront its racist past and current present, again, ignores some very specific things. I mean, let's think about the 750,000 soldiers who died to eradicate slavery. We fought a war where so many people, so much damage was done to this country. We tore ourselves at the seams to eradicate slavery. It was so important that people died for it. Is that not facing it? I mean, make no mistake, racism exists. It exists. And it's not going away. It's not going away. You don't confront racism by looking to the past. That's all done. What are you going to change? You're not going to change anything. You know how you confront racism and racists? By doing what we've done for the past forever. It's to turn our back on them. Shun them. Talk them down. Try to convert them. Show them some love and say, hey, why do you have so much hate in your heart? Try to understand that. That's how you confront it. America is not a racist country. It's just not reality. In fact, I wager that there are other countries that are far more racist or have far more racists in them. And in fact, I would go out on a limb here, a very solid limb that I could bounce up and down. It's not going to break. And say that to take an entire group of people, in this case, people like me, and paint them with a broad brush as being the oppressors, as racist, as, anti-people of color, that in and of itself is racist. I'm being told constantly, oh, you can't blame an entire religion or an entire group of people for the sins of a few, when it say like terrorism, which I wholeheartedly agree. Absolutely, I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. You can't paint a brush across an entire group of people and say they're all like this example here, this example I have right here, right? The 9/11 hijackers and the 9/11 terrorists that caused so much death and destruction on that day, they were Muslims. Does that mean my next door neighbor who might be a Muslim is a terrorist? No. Because that would be wrong to think that way. In fact, it would be bigoted to think that way. But critical race theory says absolutely it's totally okay. It's totally okay to take the white person, paint them with a broad brush, and make them the oppressors and the racists. That's what critical race theory is. So I mentioned there's some bills out there, some legislation out there in the state. There's one in the state of Texas And the story goes basically, and it's being framed as some sort of anti-critical race theory, and legislation because it's targeting schools, curriculum saying that you can't teach critical race theory, which is fine because it's just a theory. It's just a theory. I mean, maybe you could mention it. Maybe you could bring it up. No, what they're doing instead is that it's being framed as the Texas legislature trying to stop the teaching of history of people of color, which is preposterous. It's absolutely ridiculous to even think that. The bill is actually aimed at stopping the teaching of white hatred, of racial hatred. Again, CRT has nothing to do with history. They don't care about the whole CRT movement doesn't care about history outside of slavery. It doesn't, and it could care less. From slavery to Jim Crow, that's all they care about. They don't care about anything else, anything outside of that. But they're framing this legislation as being an attack on people of color and their history. And that's not the case at all, because CRT and history are two separate things. I mean, CRT, critical race theory, is designed to show that America is racist, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can say about it. So there's he was a former pastor. He's actually from my neck of the woods. He's from the Houston area, and he's in Zambia now. And he has a church there, and he's a pastor and everything, and a writer and a speaker, a public speaker, and he is very much anti-CRT. And yeah, I'd like to maybe play a clip of his if I could. So let me do this real quick. So let's switch you out to this and publish. So here we are. So this guy is Dr. Vadi Bosham. He's a junior apparently, and again he is a pastor. He's a public speaker, a writer. He's apparently a voice actor, which is pretty freaking cool, because I've always wanted to kind of do some voice acting or any acting really, although I have a problem getting in front of the camera, if you can believe it. But anyways, he is a very vocal opponent of critical race theory, and he has a really interesting bit here, and I'm going to play this for you.
There was a big stir last year when this flyer came out from the Smithsonian's Museum of African American History, and it was kind of an explanation of an expose of whiteness, and there were certain things on it like this is whiteness, like scientific method, emphasis on being on time, emphasis on self-reliance. These sorts of things. The basic understanding of the nuclear family, which is why Black Lives Matter, before they took it off their website, made it clear that they were about deconstructing, destroying, undermining the Western nuclear family.
That's right.
By the way, just like Marx was, just like Hegel was, just like Gramsci was, and just like the Frankfurt School was. Why? Because the family is a powerful actor in the transmission of hegemony. If you want to break this, you've got to break up families so that children are not raised in these institutions that pass on tradition so effectively. because we assume that it occurred. Why?
Sorry about that, but yeah. So he's he's dead on. He's dead on with this take. It's critical race theory is not about building up. Critical race theory is not about improving. It's all about tearing down, and it's all about power. I mean, it was even in the Wikipedia article I read you, transforming the relationship between law and racial power. That's all this is about. This is ultimately about power and about tearing down. And I hate to say this because I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it really is about tearing down the norms that we so love in this country. Again, the nuclear family, the passing down of our traditions to our family, having a say in our child's education. These are the things that we hold very dear. And yeah, and Chef, you nail it right on the head. It's all about power and division. And it's unfortunate, and and here's the reality. Dr. Vadi Balsham, earlier in this video, and I didn't show it, and I apologize for that, but he talks specifically about critical race theory, the actual guide, if you will, the book called Critical Race Theory. And he talks specifically about when you write an academic paper or an academic book and you get citations, in other words, other scholars who use your book to make their points, right? That's awesome. That's an awesome thing to have if you're a scholar. And if you get a couple hundred, holy crap, you're doing great. People like your stuff and they think you're the bomb diggity. Critical Race Theory, the book, has like upwards of around 5,000 or 6,000 citations. So as Dr. Balsham put it, this is not a small movement. This is not fringe people. These are people in academia, and that are, most of these people are well-to-do. They're doctors, they're scholars, they're professors. These are they're legislators, and these are the people that are pushing this. But I guarantee you that the American people in general, if you were to sit down and really step through the things that I stepped through with you today, they would be like, well, this is kind of stupid and it's divisive. And yeah, it's kind of racist. So I'm gonna finish here with a viral video that it went viral over the last day or so, and it's one of the reasons why I even started to one of the reasons why I'm tweeting, I'm talking about this subject, because I saw this video and I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. So let's take a look at this video if we can. Oop. Right.
Daddy teaches you can be anything in this world that you want to be, right? Don't Daddy teach you that?
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you're black or white or any color.
Doesn't matter if you're black, white, brown, yellow. Right?
Black.
And how we treat people is based on who they are and not what color they are.
And if they're nice and smart.
See, this is how children think right here. Critical race theory wants to end that. Right. Not with my children. It's not gonna happen. My baby's gonna know that no matter what she wants to be in life, all she has to do is work hard, and she can become that.
Work hard, even though you don't know anyone. You can make friends.
Yeah, you can make friends, no matter what color they are. So we need to stop CRT, period, point blank. Children do not see skin color, man. They love everybody. If they're good people, they love them.
We pray for people that are hurt.
that last bit, we pray for people that are hurting from the mouth of a child, because again, and he's right. Children don't see skin color, but having CRT everywhere, critical race theory everywhere, teaching our children that white is bad is the same thing as teaching our children that black is bad, that Asians are bad, that Muslims are bad, that Christians are bad, that Buddhists are bad, that man across the street who you've only seen in passing, he's bad. Because that's ultimately about what this is. This is totally what this is about. It's about division and about hatred for one another. It's not about love. It has nothing to do with love. We've lost love in this country. We've lost it. The whole idea of CRT is a collectivist idea. It assumes that no matter what an individual's experience with racism is the general experience, because that's what Marxism and leftism is. It's about the collective. It doesn't matter if there are counter views or counter experiences. That doesn't matter, because it doesn't fit the narrative. Once it doesn't fit the narrative, it is cast out and set to the side. This is why you see so many people like Dr. Bosham who essentially get canceled and called Uncle Toms, and there's a great YouTuber named Gothix, Gothix. If you haven't seen her stuff, go check her out. But she gets all sorts of hate mail from her own race because she refuses to toe the line, to think like the collective. And that's what critical race theory is all about. It's about the collective. So thank you, everybody, for coming. I really appreciate you hanging out with me today. I'm going to take a look. Chef is like all over it. So I'm going to start out and say, after what Twitter did with the 2020 election, nothing surprises me. Sorry. Yeah, exactly. And not just the 2020 election, but with the pandemic as well. You could not, and YouTube, YouTube as well, you could not say anything about any of those subjects or risk being basically taken off the platforms, deplatformed. That's a problem. Big tech is a problem. Absolutely. Promotional, misleading, imposing nonsense, in my honest opinion. It's a misleading marketing agenda that died so long ago that yet if it gains attention or attracts radicals, tabloid trash marketing. Wow. That's a mouthful. Collective grocery store news one is our government, as well as these misleading sponsored daydreams can get a grip on the USA. Only see things like these in our rearview mirror. And I'm not sure what we're talking about. It will be a blessing, in my opinion. I'm not sure what we're talking about. NFL as well as the NBA. Yeah, so the NBA has become, NBA is actually worse. The NBA has become woke. They've backed off a bit because they've lost viewership. Major League Baseball has backed off because they've lost viewership. So I think NFL is going to start backing off as well, because there's a lot of white people out here who enjoy those sports. And we don't like being trashed as being the devil. Did you ever see Ace Ventura 2, White Devil, White Devil? Exactly. Yeah, and Major League Baseball. And it, like you said, it's all about power and division. Absolutely. It's all about power and division. The Marxists, and I got to switch back over, the Marxists of the world, the leftists, not just Marxists, but leftists in general. And I'm not talking about the liberals on the political spectrum, because these people, you can disagree with liberals. It's perfectly okay to disagree with a liberal. Not a leftist. You disagree with a leftist, you're trouncing on their religion, and you are a heretic. So that's what that's all about. So I'm gonna get out of here again. Excuse me. If you like the show, please subscribe. Hit the bell so you can be notified when I go off schedule, which is going to happen. Again, I stream on Mondays and Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Also have a Friday, every Friday I release a podcast. You can find that over on anchor.fm, beyond-280. Or you can find it on any of your, whatever podcast app you like to use. Just search for Beyond-280 and you will find me. And also, if you really like the content, really like the content, and you want to support me, this is a great way to do it. You can also check me out and check everybody out who's there at the Creators Guild, specifically at the Creator Toolkit. If you're a creator and you're, no matter what you're creating, if it's a podcast, a live stream, you're doing gear reviews, that sort of thing, and you want to kind of level up your game, you want to start, if you want to just get started, or you're already kind of doing it and you just want some more tips and pros. Oh, hello. Why did that pop up? Well, that's interesting. Then come on over to thecreatorstoolkit.com, where you can also join the guild, which is, again, it's a community of creators, and this guy will not stop popping up. So I'm going to hide him for good. There we go. In fact, I'm going to lock it down. And yeah, so the Creators Guild is a community of creators from all over the world who are getting together, creating content, learning from each other, critiquing each other's content, which is very helpful. And again, come and check us out. I'm going to put that back up on the screen so you can see that. And again, if you go to the Creator Toolkit, which, by the way, all this is free, but if you go to the Creator Toolkit, you're going to get set up. It's got everything you need there, including the link to access the Creators Guild as well. So all of that to say, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. You 5 people that came and saw me, I don't know. Regardless, I'm going to actually turn this into a video and see how that goes. I'm really interested in hearing your feedback. If you got feedback, please give me a shout on Twitter. I'm at beyond_280, or you can email me at scott@beyond280.net. In the meantime, peace out. Have a great week, and I will see you, or you can listen to me on my podcast on Friday.